Hello, I'm Justin Welsh. Welcome to the presentation, and it's called How to Grow and Monetize Your LinkedIn Audience. And the subheading kind of speaks to how I think about LinkedIn, which is how to use the world's #1 professional networking platform more like social media than like a business platform. So before we dive in, you're going to be here with me for a little less than 60 minutes. If this is truly interesting to you and you want to learn how to use LinkedIn, close Slack and Discord, mute your phone, go to a quiet room, grab a notebook, a pen, go full screen. I think you're going to get the most out of this if you do those things. And after this 1-hour session, you're going to have 4 powerful takeaways. The first thing I'm going to talk about is choosing a sub niche. So much like this pie over here to the right, you're going to get a little slice of the market. We're going to talk about how to nail that slice of the market. We'll talk about creating some meaningful content. One thing that a lot of people ask me is, how do I build a business? You got to build an audience first. A really good audience is an asset that you can use to help build a successful business. So we're going to talk about creating meaningful content, which will help you build a bigger audience. So we're going to also dive a little bit deeper on getting that relevant tribe. So we're not going to worry about followers or engagements or likes. We're going to worry about people who are relevant to you and your business, because that's what matters in the end. And lastly, we're going to talk about generating some business leads. So if you want to figure out how to finally take that audience or that relevant tribe and go out and get some leads for your business, I'm going to share a few different ways that I do that. All right. There's probably going to be a ton of different experience levels here today. I'm assuming some of you have never been on LinkedIn. At the end of this, you're going to be able to immediately start creating content and gaining followers. Look at Manny Oliveira's testimonial from him. Fundamentally changed the way that I view LinkedIn. So if you don't know how to think about LinkedIn, you will know at the end of this presentation. If you're just using LinkedIn for like job hunting or sharing company information, we're going to flip that today, and you'll be immediately able to create more compelling content that builds your personal brand instead of building your company's brand. Maybe you create on LinkedIn, or you want to create, but you're kind of one of those lurkers. I know that's how I am on Twitter. I lurk, I read a lot. I don't really create that much. At the end of this, you're going to start participating in the conversation tomorrow. I'm actually going to give you some bonus tools that will allow you to participate right away and create content really fast. And then lastly, a lot of you might already be creating content on LinkedIn, but you're just not getting the traction that you want. And so my goal is to get you more engagement, more followers, more tribe members, and more customers. So I'm going to try and cram all of that into a very short presentation, so kind of keeping away all the fluff. So for those of you who stick around to the end, you'll get a nice bonus. I've also got a few bonuses throughout the course that everybody who attends this will get. I don't know how to get it to you. I'm going to assume Ashley can figure it out by the end of this presentation. So Ashley, sorry to pop that on you, but we're going to give some people some free bonus content as well.
I'm on it.
Awesome. Rock and roll. Should have told you that prior to it, but we're moving kind of quick here. And then just a heads up, like any good salesperson, I'm going to make you an offer to enroll in my course at the end of this presentation. So don't be surprised when I make that offer at the end here. Wanted to make sure you understand that's coming. So about myself, I've spent the last 12 years in high growth tech companies. So from 2009 to 2014, I was a very early employee at a company called ZocDoc in New York City. That company went from just 10 employees, I was the 10th, to about 1,000, was worth $2 billion, did multiple leadership roles at that company. Then 5 years after that, for the next 5 years, I was the chief revenue officer and senior VP of sales at a company called Patient Pop in Los Angeles. Started in that company when it had no money, no dollars, and grew it to over 50 million in recurring revenue in just 4.5 years. And for the last really 2 full-time years, I'm a creator on LinkedIn. I run a private community. I do executive coaching. I advise SaaS companies, and I've just started to write investment checks. So I've become an angel investor in the last 6 months. So I do a little bit of everything today, and I'll kind of walk you through my journey. So here's why I became a creator. This is why I decided to become one. Was because in 2018, towards the latter part in December, and again, anyone who's worked with me at Patient Pop knows this story, I had a massive panic attack. The kind of panic attack where my wife had to call 911, the emergency technicians had to show up, almost got carted to the hospital, bunch of wires. Like, it was not a good scene. And I think back of it, and I feel, pretty bad about the fact that I even allowed my life to get to that point. I had over the course of 5 years working at a really, really tough startup, I had started to burn out. I was eating too much, drinking too much, not getting enough sleep, working too hard. And I eventually, after this panic attack, told my CEO that I needed to step down and that I was burning out. I had been a decade in really high growth startups. I was 240 pounds. Give you context, I'm 190 pounds now. So 50 pounds heavier, just really, really exhausted and just really burning out. And so I stepped down in August of 2019 from my role. I told my CEO in January that it would happen. In August, I stepped down. And as I was preparing to step down, I had this hypothesis. And this hypothesis was that if I was going to step down and work for myself, that I was going to understand, I was going to do something to gain attention. And I use this word attention all the time. And sometimes people don't like when I use it, but that's what social media is. Social media is grown adults vying for attention and then using that attention as an asset. So we should all feel comfortable saying we're on social media trying to get some attention. And Kate says the mic keeps going in and out. If that's happening to anyone else, let me know and I'll rip my earphones out and we'll just keep going. So if you hear the mic going, sound is awful. Okay, let's pop out of these then. Hold on.
Yeah, it's just a little
no worries.
Still could hear, but cutting in and out just a little bit.
What about now?
Oh, perfect.
Cool.
Yeah,
Awesome.
That's gorgeous.
Hold on one second. Apologies.
All right. Thanks for letting us know, team. We are it's real-time problem solving.
Awesome. So let's keep going. Sorry about the audio problems. So the next question is, if I was going to get some attention, where was I going to get some? Right? There were a million different places. A lot of the people who want attention, they go on Twitter. They go on Twitter and start creating. And I found Twitter to be really, really difficult to actually use. Some of my friends went on YouTube and started YouTube channels. I actually don't like to be on video. Like these things that I'm doing right now, I'm usually a writer. This is not usually my style. So YouTube wasn't for me. Instagram, I'm not that good looking of a guy. So I really don't want to take fancy photos of myself and try and put them up on Instagram. That just wasn't my style. So I actually ended up on LinkedIn. This was a platform for me. And I recognized that when I chose LinkedIn, that nobody was using it like social media. And there was this really, really massive opportunity to actually use LinkedIn in a different way than other people were. So I chose LinkedIn as my platform. So here's my brand as of August 2021. I've got 5 different revenue streams that I run through LinkedIn: advising, consulting, coaching, running a community, and selling digital products. I've got about 115,000 followers, and I'm active every single day on the platform. So today I'm going to walk you through how I do all of that. And to start, I think we should talk about why, outside of me doing things as a creator, I think that you should care. And I think you should care because the world is fundamentally changing right now. There are 4.6 billion people connected to the internet. Everyone's working from home, and I think we're really in the infancy of the creator economy. And if you look around, you can go on LinkedIn, you can go on Twitter, you can go on any social media content site. More people than ever before are creating businesses, they're creating side hustles. This is the infancy, this is the time to get in. Every news organization, every media outlet is talking about the creator economy, the creator economy, the creator economy. You see it all over the place. So I call it the rise of the creator. Everyone today can become a creator. You don't have to be that special. You don't have to be that skilled. There's nothing skilled with the creators you see today other than we've figured out how to unlock audience growth. So I'm going to talk about that today. And there's really been never been a better time to share your knowledge. So if you're going to get started, I think it would be catastrophic to wait. This is the infancy. This is the early time. There are still nobody creating on LinkedIn. I know it might feel like there's a lot of people, but really there isn't. So get going now and start to build your audience before the onslaught of people come in and keep building. So I went and looked up this actual tweet from Ankur Nagpal, who's the CEO of Teachable. And this is how much money top creators are making.
The top 1% is earning $2.5 million a year, and the top 10% is earning on average $300,000 a year. So there is money in creating. This is just course creators. And if you can learn to build a course, then you can learn to build a service business or doing consulting. And there's so many different ways to make money when you have an audience. And again, LinkedIn is the most untapped social platform on the internet. So that's why I focus on there. If you want to use what I teach on Twitter or YouTube or Instagram, that's totally fine. But LinkedIn is an untapped gold mine. So I highly recommend you check it out. Writing there every morning, I put it up there as probably one of the best decisions that I've ever made. It's completely changed my life. And this is what it's allowed me to do. I've helped 3,000 people start their own side hustle. I've generated over $1 million with no ads. I've got no boss. I travel a lot. And the number one thing is I get to spend as much time with my wife, Jennifer, who you may see on LinkedIn every morning writing about finance. She just got started about 6 months ago, has grown her following from 2,500 to 40,000 in 6 months using what I teach her. So hopefully you can take what I teach you today, do the same thing. So before you decide to get started, I do want to suggest that there's one problem. There's a lot of these guys. And I don't know these guys personally. This is just a representation. But there's so many people online who are like, get started tomorrow and make $1 million. Get rich quick. Sign up for my $8,000 course and I'll teach you how to make $1 million in a week. There's so many of these people. And I'll just tell you, there are no get rich quick schemes. So anyone who says you make $1 million overnight, I'll teach you how to do everything in a day, ignore that, right? We're going to do the opposite. I'm going to show you how to play the long game, how to actually spend a good amount of time building your audience and then building a business once you have that. Just like any business, it doesn't happen overnight. It happens over time. So it's not fast. It's not passive. It's not overnight. You just show up and do the work. So this presentation, all the tools you need to succeed. Let's dive into the agenda. Number 1, choosing a sub-niche. Number 2, creating content. 3, relevant tribe. 4, generating business leads. Before I dive into the first lesson really quickly, this is all designed to be something you can do while you're fully employed. You can start in less than a week. You're obviously not going to see amazing traction in 1 week, but you can get started with this in less than a week. So let's start with part 1, choosing a sub-niche. This is so critical. I see so many people miss this. If you're a part of my private community called Audience and Income, we talk a lot about choosing a sub-niche. So when choosing a sub-niche, this is the biggest problem I see. People on LinkedIn are wildly unfocused. Here's an example of a week of content I might see from one person. Monday, they might talk about how to be a great sales leader. And then Tuesday, it's look at this funny thing my kid did. Wednesday, happy Father's Day. Thursday, here's my favorite Bob Marley song. Friday, another sales leadership tip. This is what I look like when I see one person just writing about a bunch of different things. You have to write about the same thing or record video every single day. People have to know what you talk about and what they're going to learn from you. It is a cluttered, noisy, busy world, and it's a cluttered, noisy, busy LinkedIn. So you have to make sure that you stand out. People should know exactly who you serve and exactly how you help them. And the second biggest problem I see on LinkedIn is that people have no niche. So here's an example of someone with no niche. They'll say things like, I'll help you grow if you're a company, best marketing strategies for companies, how to get leads for your company, make sales for your company, company websites. What kind of companies? There's a million different kinds of companies. You can't just talk about all companies. Do you help tech companies, service businesses, doctors, taxi cab drivers, bakeries, bed and breakfasts? These are 6 wildly different types of businesses and companies. You can't just talk about companies and you can't just talk about people. You have to pick a niche. Who exactly do you help and what exactly do you help them do? Remember, when you talk to everybody, you talk to nobody. And so we have some people asking, a lot of folks always ask me, I have 2 niches. You can't. It's really difficult. You should start with one niche and you should get really, really, really good at that. If you want to expand over time, you can do that, but don't try and talk about baking cupcakes half the time and the other time talk about how to save up in a 401k half the time. Those two things don't matter. And you're going to have an audience that looks a lot like this guy going, are you talking to me? Because people need to understand exactly what you do and exactly how you help them. So each morning that your followers come on LinkedIn, they should know exactly what to expect when they see your content. Each morning that I write content, my audience of 115,000 knows they're going to get one thing. They're going to get tips on how to grow on LinkedIn. So like Devin on Wealth says down here, that's her on Instagram, random. That's cool. Certain platforms you might just have fun with. You might just be random. But if you want to build a really strong tribe and following on LinkedIn, just real crystal clear, every single morning, a sub niche. In fact, people should be able to really self-identify as prospects and learn from you every day. So if someone says, who's the best guy on LinkedIn to learn about LinkedIn growth? I hope people say it's me. If they say, who's the best guy to learn about baking chocolate chip cookies? I hope nobody says me because I don't talk about those things. So you want to stay really laser focused, and you can't gain a tribe if you're talking about something new every single day. This is a great quote from the great marketer Seth Godin. Everyone is not your customer. So the more customers, Brad, I publish at 7:15 in the morning, great question. The more you can eliminate customers from your sphere and the more you can actually get laser focused on one type of customer, the more you can be relatable. Here's the formula I want you to remember. Broad topic, niche, sub-niche, okay? Here's an example. You can't just talk about athletes. There's a million types of athletes. A ballet dancer is different than an offensive lineman in football, right? A basketball player is different than a Tour de France cyclist. So you can't talk about athletes. You could talk about runners. That would be a niche, but still runners are different. A sprinter is significantly different than a marathon runner, right? So you can go down even further to a sub-niche, which in this example, I've identified as marathoners. So athletes, runners, marathoners. By the time you get down to marathoners, all marathoners are relatively similar. You could talk about shoes that you use to run long distances. You could talk about training for long distance. You could talk about outfits for long distance. So you can get down to a sub-niche so you can speak to one type of person. People are asking questions like, have you seen people get too specific with their sub-niche? Definitely. There's a fine line. If you can get 100 to 1,000 true fans, you can build a business. So if there's 50,000 marathoners in the United States or 100,000 marathoners in the US, I feel pretty confident that I can go out and find 100 of those people that would be fans of my business. If you're looking for ways to niche down, here are 6 ways. I'm not going to read through them. I'm going to leave it on the presentation. I won't go into the details, but it's price and demographics, level of quality, psychographics, vertical and industry, and geographics. I think Teachable will share this presentation with you and there'll be a replay, but this is a really great way to sub-niche down. Use one of these 6 things to niche down. When you do niche down, you have to be really, really patient. You're not going to see success overnight because you're going to start to eliminate some people that have been following you and liking your content and things like that. But the more you can get really laser focused, you can start growing that really specific sub-niche. Over time, you will become the go-to person. So to round out this one, another quote from Seth Godin, one of my favorites: no niche is too small if it's yours. I don't actually believe that. I think there's some really small niches, but I think you get what Seth's saying here. If you own a niche, even if there's only 10,000 people and you own it, what a great thing to own. Part 2 is creating meaningful content. So if you want to grow your audience of prospective buyers, you have to create meaningful content. And there are 2 major problems that people face when they want to create. The first problem, and I see this all the time, is that people focus on the wrong outcome. I'm going to show you an example, and a lot of you are going to hate this. And a lot of people, when I share this on LinkedIn, hate this too, but I feel very strongly about it. If you want to build a business, you need to remember it's dollars over dopamine, okay? You know what dopamine is? It's when we get excited because we see a lot of likes and a lot of engagement and a lot of comments. That stuff matters somewhat, but it doesn't matter as much as customers, right? Customers and dollars, not dopamine. Here's an example of what I mean. Here's a story that happened last Christmas. Anthony Hoskins or Gaskins worked for UPS and he delivered a bunch of Christmas presents during COVID. That's amazing. Anthony sounds like a great guy, and 1 million people shared his story, right? And they got lots of likes. It's a tear-jerking story, right? 2,000 likes over here, 300 over here, 500 over here. That's great that Anthony delivered presents. I love that. It's meaningless in the grand scheme of building your business. If you sell consulting services or you own a bakery, Anthony Gaskins and his delivery of Christmas presents is irrelevant to your business. Feels good because you'll get a lot of likes. It's not relevant to your business. I know people don't like to hear that, but it's the truth. Here are some other things. Polls. What's your favorite condiment on a hamburger, ketchup or mustard? You'll probably get 3,000 different people taking the poll. Or click one of these reactions. If you're an employee, a student, a visionary, these things feel great because people vote. People click the like button and you get all that dopamine, you get all that like. This is what it feels like. You get jazzed. You're like, yeah, I have a bunch of reactions. Woohoo, this is so many comments. I'm doing so well. And then you kind of feel like a badass, right? You're like, I'm going to go check my Stripe account, see how many sales I made. And this is what it's going to look like. It's going to look like zero because polls and gimmicks and sharing, stories about the UPS driver, they don't matter to your business. I know that's like harsh and very straightforward, but that's just my style. So like post about wonderful stories if you want to feel good. If you want to make money, you have to have a different style, right? So this is what you're going to look like if you do that every day and you go into your Stripe account. You're going to be pretty bummed like Kevin from The Office, right? So engagement isn't what matters. Everything that you create should do one thing. It should move people into your tribe, right? Tribe members become buyers. That is the truth. Once someone is in your tribe, they want to buy what you have because they follow you for a reason, because you've been specific. You own a sub niche and they are part of that sub niche and they want the information that you have, right? There's 3 really great ways to get people into your tribe. We've already talked about what doesn't work, right? Tear-jerking stories, polls, gimmicks, those things don't work. Here's 3 great ways to get people into your tribe. Number 1 is polarize. Right? Now, polarize doesn't mean be mean or be nasty or be cruel. I'm none of those things as a person, and I don't like when people are like that online, but it does mean have a strong opinion. So each morning you'll notice that most of my content is strongly opinionated. For example, this content on the right, you weren't born to spend 50 hours a week working on someone else's dream. 30% of the people who read that hated it, and they told me how much they hated it. But I didn't care because the 70% of people who believe what I believe become part of my tribe, right? They believe they can build a business online. They believe they can have a side hustle. They believe in those things. So I write my strong opinions for my following. I don't write for everyone. I write for my following. So being polarizing, having a strong opinion each day will help you find your tribe. The second thing that you can do is you can teach, right? I teach at least twice a week. So on the left, here's an 8-step process for landing a client on LinkedIn. On the right, here is a 4-step, 12 sub-step process for raising your rates as a consultant. And I don't skip any steps. I don't hide any information. I literally just teach everything I know because I become an expert in that realm and people trust me because I show them how to do something. They go apply it. It works for them. It builds more trust in my brand. So you can polarize, you can teach, and the last thing you can do is entertain. You can be entertaining. And so oftentimes I'll do a entertaining one-liner like average action taker better than brilliant overthinker. Or I'll challenge people to use their time more effectively in an entertaining way. When I entertain, I'm always polarizing too. I know that about 30 to 40% of who reads my content is going to hate it. And I'm okay with that. You have to have thick skin if you want to build a really big audience on LinkedIn and then build a business, because content that 100% of people like is generally not that interesting. Content that 0% of people like is probably pretty mean. So try and have that threshold 60-40, 70-30, and you'll be in a really good spot. So in order to help you get started, I want to give you the first bonus, which is this thing I use called the content matrix. And the content matrix is a really quick and easy way to generate a ton of different content ideas. So on the left, you just list all the topics that you want to talk about inside of your sub niche. Across the top, I've already pre-programmed 8 of my favorite structures for posts: actionable, motivational, analytical, contrarian, observation, X versus Y, present versus future, listicle. And then I've included 2 more, your upcoming week and your highs and lows from the week. So you can literally use a matrix and just match structures and topics. And you can quickly and easily create 6, 7, 8 different ideas that you can then riff on and get content started. Because the hardest thing about creating content is staring at a blank piece of paper. Everyone hates trying to create that content. This will help you get started much faster. And then the second bonus is I'm going to give you my writing process for how I actually write. I have a really specific process for writing. It's a 3-step process called trailer, meet, and recap. And I write all my content in a very similar way. So I'll share this with everyone on the call today. And you can actually use this and instantly write a piece of content in the exact same way that I do every day. And so content matrix, my writing style should get you started tomorrow if you want. Cool. And there's an example of what it looks like. So you're going to get that. This is a huge problem I see. People are like, what would you do if I don't know anything about anything? I get that question all the time. I call this affliction knowledge blindness. You don't understand that every person on this call has something valuable to share. Doesn't matter if you're 18 or 81, you have something valuable to share. You've learned something in your life. So I always ask people 2 questions. Number 1, who deserves to teach something, right? If you go back and think about school, like middle school or high school, your math teacher is not a world-renowned math expert, right? They just knew a little bit more about math than you did as a high schooler. They're a teacher. They're not Albert Einstein. They just know more about math than an 11th grader, so they can teach math in high school. That's how I think about teaching, right? And also, at what point does someone actually become an expert? Most of the thought leaders that you follow just have more experience. If I went and said, boy, Gary Vaynerchuk has more followers than I do, so I better not talk about LinkedIn, then I never would have gotten started. So don't compare yourself to other people. Like this, that's not the way to go, right? Create content for the you from 2 to 3 years ago, right? This is how I think about creating content and teaching. Birth and death. There's people that you teach and there's you. Just be ahead of the people that you teach. That's all you have to do in order to find the right students for your audience. We'll talk a little bit more about that in our next section, which is part 3, building a relevant tribe. And thank you for the people saying that this workshop is next level. This is super surface level. My course goes really, really, really deep in about 25 different things. This is just 4 of the 25. But part 3 is called building a relevant tribe. All right. If you want to build a tribe, you got to give people a reason to follow you. Just writing random content will not cause people to follow you. So there are 3 proven ways to do this. You can write these down or you can watch them in the replay. But number 1 is be a leader, okay? Number 2 is discover and curate on their behalf. I'm going to show you what I mean on each of these things. And number 3 is interview and distribute your findings, okay? So let's start with path 1, called being a leader. You want to be a leader when you have enough experience to justify the content that you're sharing. So for example, if I want to teach someone how to grow on LinkedIn, I can feel pretty confident that I know how to do that since I've already done that. So I might lead someone. I might act as the leader. I want to help people who are behind me in their journey, right? So here are 3 questions that you can ask yourself to get started when you're thinking about being a leader. Where was I 2 to 3 years ago? Are there people out there in that situation right this very minute? And could I help them get where I am today faster and with fewer mistakes? If there are 5,000 people that are just like you 2 to 3 years ago, you can find them and you can help them. Congratulations, you can lead people. That's what being a leader is all about, right? Here's an example of my content. I'm almost always playing the leader because I'm talking about LinkedIn, building businesses, finding customers. Those are all things I've been doing for 3 years. So I feel comfortable being the leader. If you don't feel comfortable being a leader, or you don't feel like you have a tremendous amount of experience in the thing you're talking about, you can discover and curate on your audience's behalf. You want to discover if you don't have that expertise, and you're kind of going on a mission on behalf of your audience to uncover these secrets so that your audience doesn't have to do it on their own, right? Then you curate, which means you take all the things you learn, put them together, and you share them with your audience. And you did the work on their behalf. There's a great guy on Twitter who does this. His name is Sumit Garg, and he reads all of Jeff Bezos's Amazon shareholder letters. He breaks down all of Steve Jobs' Apple letters. He talks about all the different things he learned from Bob Iger. He breaks down mental models. He takes all these things that most people would be too busy to go study. He breaks them down on his spare time. He makes them really easy to understand, and then he shares them with his audience. And his audience pays him back with following. He's got 40,000 followers on Twitter. He's a 22-year-old kid, right? Just curating and distributing. That's awesome, right? And then path number 3 is interviewing and distributing. So if you have access to some people in your sub-niche, you can start interviewing them. So let's say you're a sales leader and you want to start interviewing a bunch of sales leaders. You can interview experts, authorities, other people in your industry, and you can start to take all the things that you learn and distribute those to your audience. Chris Fladzuk on Twitter is a perfect example. He's a senior at Yale, and all he does in their Entrepreneurs Club is interview famous people. He interviewed the guy who invented Amazon Prime. He interviewed 5 founders of billion-dollar startups. He interviewed someone worth $25 billion. And you can see massive, massive engagement on his stuff. Chris just interviews and distributes. He has no experience in tech companies or SaaS. He's a senior in college. But because he makes all this information really accessible to his audience, he gets repaid in the form of followers. And Adam from the podcast, I see you down there, man. You do something like that, he wrote. That's exactly right. Adam interviews guys like Gary Vaynerchuk or myself, takes all the things he gets and distributes to his audience and builds an audience. It's an awesome way to do it, right? You can mix and match all those things. Lead, curate, interview. If you do those things all the time and you're focused on your sub-niche, you continue to build an audience in that sub-niche. The last part before we get into Q&A is generating some business leads. All right. So if you're going to go through it, Brad asked, Justin, can we mix all those? Absolutely, man. Lead sometimes, curate sometimes, interview sometimes, mix and match. You'll figure out which one your audience likes the most just from testing. So if you're going to do all this stuff, right, you might as well generate some leads. You might as well try and close some customers. So there's 2 proven ways to do this. Again, write these down or watch the replay. Number 1 is generating inbound leads. Number 2 is hunting outbound leads. So let's start with generating inbound leads. I have a couple different ways I do these things. All right, here's my 3-step process. The first thing that I do is I write a daily post each morning. You all know that. I've already talked about that. That's the first thing that I do. I write 1 post, right? The goal is for people to read my post, and my hope is that they'll come and take a look at my profile, right? Because I actually want to pull people off of LinkedIn, because the LinkedIn algorithm can change any minute, any hour, any day. I want to get people away from LinkedIn and over to a place where I control the narrative and I control the communication, okay? So I want to take them from LinkedIn really to my website and help gain their email address in some way, shape, or form. Here's how I do it and how you can do it too. I have 2 things on my featured section. So there's a section of your profile called featured where you can feature links. I have TOF and BOF. What that stands for is top of funnel and bottom of funnel. I'll walk you through this. If you've been following me for a long time and you come to my profile and you decide you want to buy my course, you're at the bottom of the funnel. You're ready to be a customer. It's a sales funnel. You're ready to be at the bottom and be a customer. So I give you the opportunity. There's my course right there on the right. If you're bottom of funnel, you click it, you buy it. If you're at the top of funnel, maybe it's the first time you've ever heard of me, first time you've stumbled across my piece of content, first time you've ended up on my profile, you're probably not ready to buy my course. So you don't have to. I have a top of funnel option for those people as well. So on the left, I have a piece of content called free LinkedIn advice. And people are like, oh, I'm not ready to buy this course, but I'll go check out this free LinkedIn advice. And that is the next step in my process. That article is what I call an evergreen article. And my goal is to get them to that evergreen article and give me their email address. So an evergreen article is something you write one time. You write a big guide on LinkedIn, on building a business, on baking cupcakes, whatever it is that you do, you write a big, robust guide, right? And you update it all the time so that 5 years down the road or 10 years down the road, it's still a valuable piece of content. And you make someone give you your email address. So that's what I do. People either buy my course and become a customer, and inside of my course, I have other options for them to buy other things, or they come over to my website to the free LinkedIn guide. And when they get there, they have to give me their email address. So I trade them email address for robust evergreen guide, right? And that leads to step 3, automated emails. When you do that, you're agreeing to opt into my weekly newsletter. So I now have permission to send you a newsletter to your inbox all the time. And newsletter and email success is all about consistency. You want to show up either weekly or bi-weekly. I generally do weekly. Sometimes I miss. It's my 1 week link, but I usually write something once per week. And so inside of the course, I actually teach people how to use 2 to 3 different offers to get people buying your product, your service, your business literally every day. Doesn't happen overnight, but over time, as you build your audience and you have this kind of cycle going, you can get people into your cycle, and each morning, at least 50 or 60 people are receiving an email from you. And when they do, 1 or 2 people buy. And it becomes this very automated machine. Take some time. I go kind of deep in that on the course. And then choice number 2, outside of inbound leads, is hunting outbound leads. This is something I wrote about on LinkedIn the other day. People are missing a huge opportunity here. This is really easy. This is my 2-step process. First thing I do is I set up Google alerts for my ideal prospects. So I'll give you an example of what that might look like. I used to work in healthcare technology. I worked at healthcare technology companies. That's what I did for 10 years. And there's something called a Series A. And so for those of you who aren't familiar with tech or venture capital speak, a Series A just means a company's raised some money, right? So a health tech company raised some money, which means they have some money to spend. They raised $20 million or $30 million or $40 million, and now they've got some money to spend, right? I would like to hope that they would spend it with a guy like me. And so that's my expertise in my past life. And so I set up an alert for every time a healthcare company raised a Series A. And then I would just passively reach out to people who did that once a week. I would save all of those alerts. And every Friday morning at 9 a.m., I would start reaching out to the CEOs of the companies that raised the money. Here's an example. I got an email that said, Swell closes $2.5 million seed round. So what did I do? I reached out to Drew Sparks, the CEO at Swell. Said, hey, Drew, congrats on the round. I'm following you from over here in Los Angeles, and I want to say best of luck. Cheers. No sales pitch, no selling, no, I'm Justin Welsh, and here's why you should pay attention to me. Just congratulations. He wrote back and said, I appreciate the support. I saw you recently left Patient Pop. Are you consulting? As a matter of fact, Drew, I am. And so we started a conversation and Drew became a customer. Here's another one. Okadoc closes $10 million Series A. Hey, Fadil, congrats on the round. I'm a healthcare technology veteran. Love what you're doing. Following you from over here in Los Angeles. Hey, Justin, thanks so much for the message and the kind words. I really appreciate you reached out to me. I'm impressed by your career and what you achieved. I'd love to have a call and tell you more about what we do. Fadil and Okadoc became a customer. No selling, no aggression, no sales pitch, no look at this PDF, just congrats. This is it. Congrats on this newsworthy thing you did. As someone who is relevant to your business in some way, shape, or form, I'm just cheering you on from afar in whatever city you belong in. Let's stay connected. I do that every Friday morning to about 50 people, and I usually land a handful of customers. This is a really, really simple way to land customers. Set up as many Google alerts as you want. Congratulations, you're going to get a customer. That's it. It's not that, I don't have any like magic, ace up my sleeve. It's just all automation. And so I use automation to do those things. So let's dive into a quick recap. All right. Before, there were probably people on here that never thought of using LinkedIn or didn't know how, or were scared, or lurker, or creating and not getting traction. Now you should understand the power of this platform. You should know the broad topic niche and sub-niche. You should know 3 ways to stop lurking and start creating, which are lead, discover and curate, interview and distribute. And you now have a content matrix and my writing style to just go out and start building your tribe tomorrow. Cool? So you got everything that you would need to at least dip your toe in the water to get started. There's no excuses, right? Get started. So it's going to take some work, but anyone who wants to succeed doing it will.